My things will be sent to your house next week. Make sure to accept them, alright? You're so careless and irresponsible. I'm moving in to teach you how to be a proper wife. The least you can do is give me my own room, even if it means moving your stuff out. Out of nowhere, my mother-in-law drops this shocking news. Moving in, teaching me? What is she even talking about? My husband, Roy, never mentioned anything about her living with us and re-educating me. Who does she think she is? She doesn't care about my feelings and actually moves in the following week. Then she sees her son in the house and screams like in the Scream painting. That's when she realizes who really needs re-educating. She also learns there's no home for her to stay in because my real home is. I was a working wife, married for 3 years. Roy and I met through a friend, hit it off, and got married after 2 years of dating. We both worked full-time and were used to doing housework on our own. After getting married, we had a simple rule: whoever noticed chores or had time would do them. It worked well, and we never argued about it. When my work got busier, Roy took on more housework. Even though we had agreed on this, I felt a little guilty. To make up for it, I bought him desserts or treated him to nice meals on weekends. It felt like I was bribing him with food, but he always reassured me, saying, "I'd rather help than have you feel overwhelmed." I was grateful for my kind husband and wished our happy days would last forever. But then my father-in-law passed away. He had married late in life, so he was already quite old. It was sad, but Roy accepted it as a natural part of life. For my mother-in-law, Olivia, it was much harder. She had been with him for years, and now she felt lost. She hated being alone, so she started visiting us frequently. On weekdays, she came after work. On weekends, she sometimes arrived early in the morning. Honestly, it was exhausting. I was already tired from work, and entertaining her all day on my day off was tough. But I wanted to support her, so I did my best to be patient. At first, she just wanted company. We chatted over meals about the news, work, and Roy. Sometimes she cried about my father-in-law, and I sat quietly beside her. But over time, her visits changed. She stopped coming just for company. She started judging me instead. She criticized how I ran the house. The fridge wasn't organized enough. Laundry wasn't done properly. There were too many instant noodle wrappers in the trash. She asked if I was trying to ruin my health before having a baby. She kept scolding me, even though Roy and I were fine with how we managed things. We weren't even thinking about kids yet. I understood her concerns, but if she spent less time complaining, I'd actually have more time to clean. Of course I couldn't say that. So I just nodded. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Then one weekend she came over and saw Roy washing the dishes. Suddenly, she snapped. "Why is my son doing dishes? You're the wife. This is your job." I froze. She grabbed the sponge from his hands and made him sit down. Then she pulled me into the kitchen. I stood by the sink, annoyed but trying to stay calm. "Olivia, we both work, so we split the chores. He's just helping out today. I don't make him do everything." "Don't talk back to me," she snapped. She refused to listen, no matter what I said. I thought if Roy spoke up, she might finally understand. I looked at him, hoping he would defend me. He nodded like he understood. For a moment, I felt relieved. Then, to my shock, he said something completely unexpected. "Mom, calm down. It's not good for your health to get so upset," Roy said. "But you do have a point. From now on, I'll make sure she does things the right way. Honey, you should apologize to her." He turned to me. Why wasn't he telling her that we shared the chores? I thought about arguing, but there was no point. Olivia and now even my husband were against me. "I'll be more careful in the future," I said, deciding to end the conversation. After she left, I asked Roy why he had sided with her. "No matter what I said, she wouldn't have listened as long as she saw you as a bad wife," he explained. But if he had told her, she would have listened. That could have ended this right away. Instead, he made things worse. Sensing my frustration, he quickly tried to justify himself. "I was just trying to keep the peace. You know my mom, she wouldn't understand if I explained our rule. But don't worry, she'll get it eventually." I wasn't buying it. We had known each other for years, and I could tell when he was full of it. Deep down, I felt like he was just using this as an excuse to stop doing chores. Roy had always been a bit of a trickster. I was easygoing, and since he had never caused major trouble, I had let it slide before. But now I saw no guilt in his face. More than anything, I just felt exhausted. Still, I convinced myself that maybe he just wanted to keep his dignity in front of his mother. We had shared the workload before, so I hoped things would go back to normal soon. But I was wrong. Since that day, Roy stopped helping with the chores altogether. We never had strict rules about who did what, but he had always pitched in. Now he completely ignored it. At first, I thought he was sulking because I had called him out. But no, he was simply refusing to do anything. I finally confronted him. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said, surprisingly agreeing right away. I figured maybe he was just being lazy for a bit. But then, the next day, Olivia showed up without calling ahead. That was unusual, so I worried something was wrong. Instead, she had something else to say. "I heard you still haven't learned your lesson. You're not doing any housework, and you don't even cook for your husband. Don't you care about feeding him properly? Roy told me he hasn't been eating homemade meals because you refuse to cook." I turned to Roy and glared. Roy had completely turned on me. I warned him, but he didn't care. "This isn't my fault," I said. And snitch isn't the right word. He just didn't want to do any chores, so he blamed everything on me. Because of that, Olivia started coming over even more often, and Roy stopped helping at all. I had to pick up all the chores he used to do, even when I got home late. If I wasn't so busy with work, I might have managed, but I barely had time to sleep. I was exhausted. If this continued, I knew I would collapse. So I tried talking to him again. But right when I needed to, his work got busy, and we couldn't have a proper conversation. At first, I understood, but his schedule was insane. He started coming home really late on weekdays, sometimes after midnight. On weekends, he worked all day. Sometimes, he even stayed at the office overnight, saying the commute was a waste of time. I had wanted to talk about Olivia, but I became more worried that he was overworking himself. When I finally saw him, I asked, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine," he said, looking full of energy. That was odd. If he was working so hard, he should look at least a little tired. But he seemed too energetic. How was that possible? I started wondering if his company was overworking him unfairly. So I asked a colleague whose family member worked at the same place. When I described Roy's schedule, she looked confused. "Yeah, it's a busy season, but they don't work that much. Maybe some departments do, but these days, they're strict about hours." So Roy wasn't completely lying, but he wasn't telling the whole truth either. I had a bad feeling. I was too busy with work to keep up with house chores, and the house became a mess. The next day was my day off, so I planned to clean everything and get the house back in order. But then, Olivia showed up. "What happened here?" she gasped. "The moment I leave you in charge, this is what happens. No wonder my son has been doing everything. I've told you we share." I started to explain, but then I realized there was no point. As I hesitated, she suddenly seemed to get an idea. "I'm going home for today," she said. "I just remembered something." She left. I had braced myself for a long lecture, but she was gone just like that. It felt strange, but I was just glad to have peace. Then, a few days later, she called with shocking news. "Hello, my belongings will be delivered to your house next week. Accept them all." "Okay." "What?" "After seeing the mess, I have to step in. You're too clumsy and careless. For my son's sake, I'm moving in to train you to be a proper wife. The least you can do is give me my own room, even if you have to move your stuff out." She made this decision all on her own, without even asking, and her things were already on the way. I was done being treated like a fool. I had already been thinking about a plan, and now was the time to act. The day she was supposed to move in, she called me over and over. I ignored her at first, but she wouldn't stop. Eventually, I picked up. On the other end, she was screaming. "What's going on? Where are you? Who is that woman with my son?" I had never heard her this hysterical before, and I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" she yelled. But I wasn't on that day. I had told Roy I was going to visit my parents for a few days, and my plan had worked perfectly. I had a feeling Roy might bring his mistress home while I was gone. When I started noticing differences in his busy work schedule compared to what my colleague had told me, I decided to hire a private investigator to find out what he was really doing. Turns out, he was cheating on me with a younger colleague. During the week, he used the company car to bring her to our house. On weekends, he'd go to hotels with her. He was even getting paid overtime for working late, but in reality, he was just spending that time cheating on me. So I knew for sure he would try to bring her over while I was away. I figured he was planning to have fun at home until he had enough. But then Olivia and the movers arrived. I was ready to expose her son for the liar and cheater he was. I told her everything. She was in total shock. All I could hear were her gasps. I really wish I could have seen her face. But just so you know, I wasn't actually with my parents. I was at a realtor's office, signing a contract for a new house and canceling a lease on my current one. When Olivia called, I was in the middle of it. The realtor was patiently waiting for me to finish, so I cut straight to the point. "Look, Olivia, I'm busy canceling my lease, so let's get to the point," I said. "You made a fool out of me, telling me I needed to be trained. Do you realize who needs the training now? You insisted I do all the housework. Well, I pay the rent for that house, not him." He had shared the housework because I worked more hours and earned more than him. But now he was spending time with another woman. I told her I didn't care anymore. "I'm asking for a divorce, and I'll be getting alimony. My lawyer will reach out to him later." And then I told her never to contact me again. I was about to hang up, but I heard her sobbing and pleading. "I just ended the lease on my old house. Where will I go if this house is gone?" She had always criticized me, but now needed my help. I told her, "Not my problem. Talk to your son." And then I hung up for real. A few days later, I filed for divorce, and my lawyer was working on getting me $100,000 in alimony. I had full faith in my attorney. Roy was fired from his job, and his mistress dumped him, saying she never should have gotten involved with him. I couldn't care less about their misery. Instead, I found something interesting. Roy had been abusing over-the-counter energy boosters. It messed up his internal organs, and he couldn't work as much anymore. Too much of anything is always bad. With the lease canceled, neither Roy nor Olivia had anywhere to live. I have no idea where they are now or even if they're still alive. But they don't matter to me anymore. I'm excited for my new free life.